Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. And this week's video is all about how the stages of romantic relationships perfectly align with the stages of training your voice. Now, if you think I've gone completely mad, please do watch to the end because I promise you it will make sense. I hope it will make sense. But of course, as always, if you have any comments, questions, post them below. Please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and always give my videos a like. It just helps to get my videos out to more people. And finally, before I get started as well, all the links are below if you're interested in working privately with me, or if you're interested in maybe one of my online courses as well. So everything is below, and you can always reach out to me if you're not sure what is the best fit for you. So depending on whose work you read, some people say there's 4 stages to romantic relationships. Some people say there's 5, 6, 7. It really depends. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to keep it really simple with the 4 main stages. And then I'm going to show you how that relates to your voice. Because I really started to kind of connect the dots. It really kind of hit me this week with this. I don't know why it suddenly hit me, but I started thinking about the honeymoon phase in relationships and how we have a honeymoon phase with training our voice. I'm sure you're all familiar with the honeymoon phase. It's that stage in a relationship where you're dating and everything's great. Literally, you don't see anything negative about this person. They are all sunshine and light, and you can't get enough of them, and you just want to spend every waking moment with them and talk about them, and you are basically infatuated by this person. So it's all about excitement, joy, hope, positivity, and you really don't see anything negative at all. And from a sort of Jungian perspective, which is the lens with which I do all my coaching, really in this early stage, we are just projecting. We are projecting actually our own light onto someone else. We think it's in them, but it's really not. We're really just projecting all our own greatness, our own wonder, or our own light that we're not necessarily conscious of onto this other person. Which is why we go through these stages, because if it was in them, then nothing would ever change. So it's very much a projection. However, we don't want to take away from the magic of that early stage of relationships because it is exciting. So I see this with people when they sign up. Now, I just want to put a quick caveat in here because sometimes for people, they have resistance before they sign up. And particularly when they work with me, because my investment for my coaching is higher than maybe your average voice coach because of the deeper approach that I have. And so sometimes there can be some resistance to signing up in the first place. And usually it'll be about money, even though we know it's not ever really about money, but the ego will say it's about money. But once people have got over that resistance to spending that money on themselves and making that investment, then we're in the first stage. So I just wanted to put that in first. So there can be that initial resistance to the investment. So the first stage then, this honeymoon phase from the voice perspective, once they've made that commitment, they've signed the agreement, they've made the payment, they come to their first session, they're excited. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be any nerves, because even in the early stages of a relationship, we're kind of giddy with excitement and we've got butterflies and it's kind of nerves/excitement, but we still can't wait to see them. So there's all of that, but there's that feeling in the early stages of working with clients. And so they're full of hope, they're full of optimism, they're full of positivity, and they can't wait to get started. Everyone that I work with always enjoys their sessions. They always get so much value and they love doing the work. They love the sessions. They find a lot of joy in it. So in those early stages, say in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, and this is really going to depend on the person, how long the honeymoon phase is. Obviously, romantically, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 6 months. From a voice perspective, it might be a few weeks. It really depends on the person. But this is the stage where they're just excited. And I give them some exercises, I give them some things to do, I give them some things to think about, and they're all in there and they're sending me things and they're asking me questions and they're just really into it. So that's the honeymoon phase, and it's just full of positivity, optimism, hope, excitement, and there's a real desire to want to show up, do the practice, and really engage in the process. And it's exactly the same in the early stages of a relationship. We are 100% there. We are there with bells on, and we really don't notice anything negative in those early stages. And it's the same with our voice. As I say, once we've got through that initial investment, now for some people that isn't an issue at all, but for other people it brings up a lot of fear to invest in themselves. So it really depends. But once they've got over that, then they are, yeah, I'm here, I'm excited, and I can tell they're enjoying the sessions. So stage 2 then is the reality check. Now, we've all been there in a relationship. It might be months, it might be a couple of years, but we get to a point where the rose-tinted glasses fall off and we start to see the real person. So those things that initially we found really cute and endearing and funny and amazing about them now start to really grate on us, start to really irritate us. And it could be really, really silly things, maybe the way they cough, or maybe the way they always leave their socks on the floor or leave the toilet seat up, or whatever it is. Maybe the way they speak, maybe they speak really loudly, or maybe they speak really quietly. And initially you found it kind of endearing, and now you just find it really annoying. So all of that wonder and greatness that we'd projected onto them in the honeymoon phase is now falling off, because they never asked you to project onto them. We project onto people all the time. They're projecting onto you, you're projecting onto them, and we can't maintain that projection. So the projection falls off. But all you're seeing is the person that was always there. You just never saw it because you had your blinkers on in the honeymoon phase. So it's the same with our voice. So we go through those first few weeks or months, depending on how long we're doing this. And really, it varies very, very much from person to person, because it depends how much resistance you have. The more resistance you have, the more challenging and slower the process. When you're in the honeymoon phase, you don't really feel the resistance. You don't really notice it, because it's just about projecting all your greatness and all your wonder onto that person. And it's the same with the voice. In that early stage, we don't really feel the resistance, because we're all about the excitement and the optimism and the hope and the motivation that we feel to train our voice. And finally, I've got someone that can help me, and I've got these tools and I've got these exercises. But then our inner resistance starts to hit us. So we're doing the exercises, but now maybe we're finding that we're not getting the result we want as quickly as we wanted it. So maybe the voice isn't changing as quickly as we wanted, or maybe we're getting sort of partial results. So we're able to maintain the habit in certain situations, but not in others, or we have to really, really think about what we're doing. But all of this resistance starts to show up. Now, the resistance was always there, but we just didn't see it initially, very much like with the relationship. The stuff was always there with that person, but we just didn't see it. So what tends to happen at this point then is you start to feel a bit hopeless, you start to feel frustrated, you might start to feel demotivated, because you're doing the exercises, but you're not getting the result that you want, or you're not seeing what you want. And what you have to start to realize is you're just seeing your own mind playing out through this work. And that's always been there. This is where, particularly if you're trying to do it by yourself, you are likely to give up. You're likely to just stop practicing. You're likely to say, I've just been really busy. And I hear this all the time from clients. I've just had a really busy couple of weeks. I haven't had time to practice. So the resistance starts to set in. Because remember, certainly from my perspective, your voice is just an outer reflection of your inner world. So your current vocal habits are there to protect you. Your ego doesn't want you to change. It doesn't want your voice to change. And by change, I mean it doesn't want you to step into the truth of who you are. It wants you to stay in that limited, small, powerless, conditioned self. It wants you to keep that voice. So it's going to start putting the brakes on and tell you things aren't working. And so what you'll find with the voice is that you just maybe feel like your progress is really slow, or you're not making any progress, or you can maintain it in some circumstances, but not in other circumstances. And then you start to lose faith and hope that this is ever going to work. And you just think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why have I spent all this money? And this is why you need a coach, because this is completely normal. This is a normal part of the process. So if you try and do this by yourself, you will probably give up. because you will buy into all the stories of the ego that tells you, no, maybe this isn't right. Maybe I should just go back to mumbling. Maybe I should just go back to speaking really quietly and running out of breath. Maybe that's just the way my voice is. So remember, that's what the ego wants you to think. It wants you to hold on to that voice. It's the same with romantic relationships because they really are the greatest mirror to the deepest unseen, unmet parts of ourselves. And in a way that no other relationship is going to mirror that to you, because this is a person that you are emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually engaged with. And there's no one else in your life that you're going to have that full engagement and connection with. They really are your greatest mirror, which will trigger your ego. And that's when the brakes go on. That's when all the fear sets in. That's when all the doubt and frustration sets in. Because again, your ego actually doesn't really want you to get really close to someone. It doesn't want you to be intimate with someone and really vulnerable with someone, because that's all death to the ego. The ego is built on separation and really survival. So really, really fascinating. So this is the second stage, very, very common. So if you are at that stage where you're feeling a bit frustrated, a bit hopeless, like nothing's really working, I'm doing the exercises, but I'm not seeing the results, don't give in, because your ego wants you to give in, but I don't want you to give in, which moves us on to stage 3. So if you don't give in to that voice, if you don't give in to the stories of your mind telling you that it's not working and that you should just go back and run back, you move into stage 3, which is the work stage. And this is where the real work begins, because now you see this person for who they really are. You know, this is the real person. I've just projected all this stuff onto them, and now I'm just seeing who they always were, but I just couldn't see it. And it's going to be the same with them, with you as well. So it works both ways. And so that's why the more we can do our own inner work, the less of this we'll have to deal with. So this is where it can be make or break. This is where we give up in terms of our voice development, but also in terms of relationships. We're like, this person is just too irritating. They're driving me mad. I'm getting out of this. And this is because we're getting to that stage where we're getting close to that real commitment to this person. And the ego fears commitment. The ego fears vulnerability. It fears intimacy. It really fears letting anyone get really close to us. So it always wants to keep everyone at arm's length. And so from a voice perspective, it's the same. You know, as I said, the ego fears you reclaiming your authentic voice. It wants you to hold on to those vocal habits that are limiting you, whether it's speaking fast, whether it's mumbling, whether it's running out of breath, whether it's just sounding really monotone and dull and boring when you speak. It wants you to hold on to those because in some way they're serving you. And so when you work with a coach like myself, we can keep you on track. And then when we get to this stage of the work stage, this is where you almost recommit to the process. You're like, okay, I see what's going on. I see how this is my own resistance showing up. I see how I have a lot of fear around this expression, how I have a lot of fear around really allowing my voice out. And going back to relationships, it might be, you know, I see why I have a lot of fear around commitment or intimacy or vulnerability. And you work through it. You don't run away from it, which is what we tend to do if we're sort of left to our own devices. So this is the stage of a recommitment. So you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm not going to now allow my ego to stop me. I'm going to do my practice. Even if I don't see anything happening straight away, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep practicing. I'm going to keep working through emotionally what's showing up and allowing myself to feel what's showing up emotionally. And that is really the game-changing stage. But you've got to get to that stage first. And this is why I work with clients for a minimum of 3 months and usually for 8 months because of this. Because for some people, they can stay stuck in stage 2 for a few months. There's so much resistance within them having the voice that they said that they wanted in our first call. And it's all showing up and they couldn't see it straight away. And now it's like, okay, we've got to work through this. You can't run away from it. But I promise you there's light at the end of the tunnel. So the same with relationships as well. It's very easy to walk away when things get a little bit challenging. But if we stay the course, and we confront those fears and those doubts and those insecurities within ourselves, which are just being mirrored by our partner, or in this case, mirrored by what's happening with your voice, you can move into stage 4, which is acceptance. And this is where, from a relationship perspective, now you've gone through a lot together, you've worked through a lot individually and as a couple, and now there's a real acceptance for who this person is. You are seeing them now for who they really are, warts and all, the things that irritate you, the things that you love about them, and you've chosen to commit and to create that deeper bond. And it's the same with our voice. So we get through that awkward phase, that should I give up? Should I walk away? No, I'm going to recommit to my voice and show up. And then you literally just almost, and I've heard this from clients a lot, it's almost like one day you just wake up and the stars and moon align. The voice just starts to work and you start to find that you're showing up differently, but it's happened very, very gradually. You don't wake up one day and everything's changed, but it will be a gradual shift. But one day you will just start to notice it, but it's sort of been there all along. And this is where you're really allowing this true, powerful, expressive, clear, coherent, generous voice to be allowed out. And you're owning it now. Now, much like relationships, it doesn't mean the work stops. It doesn't mean you just stop. Now I don't need to do anything. I don't need to make any effort with this person. We still make an effort. We still show up. We still do the work. We still do the inner work with whatever shows up for us. And we talk about stuff that we need to as a couple. But it's the same with the voice. So we keep doing the work. We do the maintenance work on our voice. We keep showing up. We keep challenging ourselves. But there isn't the same struggle with our voice anymore because our voice is now basically functioning so much better. We feel more confident. We feel more empowered and things just work better. Yes, there's still going to be challenges. Yes, there's still going to be things you have to work through, but we are basically feeling more grounded, feeling more empowered, and just feeling more comfortable in our own skin and sharing our voice. So I hope that that makes sense because for me, it just really, really dovetailed so perfectly into the stages of romantic relationships. Because for me, it's really just the stages of letting the kind of the ego persona and everything that we've constructed about who we think we are to sort of die in a way and to really let another person into our life. It is about letting down the defenses and to really allow our true voice to emerge. It's about letting down the defenses. It's about allowing the voice to open and allowing the voice to come out in a really powerful way. But it is very, very challenging to do alone because you will buy into your ego's fears, insecurities, stories, limiting beliefs, all of that. It is so difficult to do alone. And as I said, this is why I work with people across a minimum of 3 months normally, because I find that for most people, that stage 2 is the most challenging stage. And without me there to remind them of the truth and to keep encouraging them to move forward, they would give up. They would just stop doing it. So it's going to vary depending on how much internal resistance you have to how long you stay in each stage.